Welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. And this week, I wanted to kind of catch up on things that are going on in the military community that will affect military families. And the reason why this is something that is important, not just for only for military families, but for the general public to be aware of, is that there are things that happen that adversely affect military families that we need help getting changed. We need advocacy for. It's hard for things to get changed for us. And one of these things is one of those issues that, I'm kind of cringing to see happen again. So wanted to just give everyone a heads up on what's going to happen. It's a housing situation. And if there's anybody who can help, maybe this can get fixed before it's an issue. Who knows? So I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so this week is kind of a public service announcement in some ways, and that is due to the fact that Military Times broke the story that the DoD is considering charging utilities again for base housing, for military installation housing. The reason why this was stopped back in 2019 was because a lot of these units were never made to function as independent units with their utilities. Multiple units would be wired together. Street lamps would be connected into the electrical grid of a unit or something like that. So there were people who were getting charged for a street light or for half of their neighbor's usage of electricity, which is completely unreasonable and unfair. And because of that, there was families who were getting charged $700, $1,000 a month for their electricity when it wasn't even all of their usage. Not to mention, a lot of the military installations don't have, they're old housing, and so they're not energy efficient. And we have no choice on that. So that was an issue. But then the other issue to take into consideration is something that hasn't changed. So when you live on a military installation, they take all of your basic housing allowance, all of it, which I guess is a thing, but that's fine. If you sign a contract to rent a house in the private sector, and all of a sudden you get a pay raise at work, your landlord can't charge you more money because you got a pay raise and say you have to give us, X amount of your pay. But every time you get a pay raise in the military, you get a bump so when you get a pay raise in the military due to a rank advancement, so you get promoted, your BAH goes up. Well, immediately you start getting charged the higher rate. So basically your rent increases every time your pay increases, which is illegal in the private sector. They can't just do that to you randomly, but military housing does it all the time. So they're taking all of our BAH. We don't have any other housing money. So we've lived in a military installation and we've lived off a military installation. We've rented and we've owned. We've always managed to cover all of our utilities and all of our rent or mortgage in our BAH when we've lived off post. And so when we moved on post, it was nice that we weren't having to pay for our utilities. It was kind of all covered in that. Just like we had always planned to do when we were off post. That was the only reason why we moved on post, is because in 2019, we moved on a military installation just after they changed in 2019, making it so that they wouldn't be charging utilities. Here's the downside. They're now talking about bringing that back. And I get that the cost of utilities has gone up. But the reason why they stopped charging military utilities on top of taking our entire BAH was because of all of those issues. to my knowledge, a lot of those wiring issues, all of those electrical issues that were already built into the military housing have not been fixed in the last 2 years. I highly doubt with COVID, they rewired all of those places. And so all of those fundamental flaws still exist. Now, the directive that came out, and this is according to Military Times, I want to make sure I'm getting the bullet points correct that they put out there. But basically, they are given the instructive effective immediately. And this actually came out in March. So I feel like I'm a little behind the 8 ball in getting this info to you. And I apologize for that. But basically, oh, come on. Where does it? Okay, I don't have the exact date. I'm pretty sure it said March, though. But here's what the bullet points of, Oh, no, wait. It was December 16th. Wow, I'm really behind the 8 ball, everyone. I apologize for that. But anyway, according to the guidance or directive that was given, the DOC policy provides just the guidance for them. It says, determine the utility allowance or baseline usage for service members living in privatized housing on military installations that belong to. Criteria for including or excluding individual units in the billing program, reporting requirements, billing requirements, startup protocols, verifications, approvals, and notifications. So they're not starting this yet. We have some time here. But really, as a military community, and if other people can join us, this is where the civilian population, the rest of y'all can really help us out. If this happens, we're going to have the same problems we were having before. You're going to have one family. And so let me break it down what they did before. Before they set this average rate, they found the average of what was being spent. And if you spent under that, you'd get reimbursed. And if you spent over that, you would get charged. Well, let's say your unit, half of your unit is electrical, is tied into half of your neighbor's electrical. So your meter is going to read your electrical usage plus half of theirs. So you're going to get charged every month because you're using extra whatever, and they're going to get a refund every month. And it's not because you're actually, if they could figure it out, using more, it's because you have more electrical allotted to your meter. And to me, that's just nuts. That's just nuts. I don't know how they plan on doing this and not just making it a nightmare again for everyone. There were so many military families that just got fed up because there are upsides and downsides to living on every military installation. There are upsides and downsides to every type of housing on any given military installation. But by and large, most military housing is old, and most military housing was never wired as individual units. And so until that fundamental flaw is fixed, trying to charge people for their individual use is kind of A, unfair, and B, ridiculous, at least in my opinion. I just don't see how it is logical. I get that with the rising cost rates, they want to figure something out. But in all honesty, they have these organizations that are taking all of our pay increases for everything. And so they're talking about pay increases. This is the other thing. They're talking about increasing BAH for a lot of different installations. They haven't completely been clear about what they're doing. But on one side, they're going to up BAH, which means they're just giving more money to the housing companies on these installations. And on the other hand, they're going to take more money from the military families. I don't understand the logic. I just don't. And again, I get the reason why it's happening. I get the reason that the cost of utilities is going up for everyone. But it just doesn't make sense to give more money to these housing facilities, who some are still under investigation for fraud. Some have been found guilty for fraud, and they're still working, servicing military families. They're going to give these companies more money and then take money from the military families? I feel like someone didn't think this through. I feel like two different hands, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And so I wanted to bring these to people's attention, because if you're in military installation housing, you're going to need to start prepping for this. I mean, there's a good chance this is going to happen, and you're just going to have to deal with it. But if there is any way that we can kind of be like, hey, haha, can we not, and say we didn't, or can we work this out because this don't make sense? Like, maybe there is no other solution. Maybe it's just something we're going to have to suck up again. I mean, that happens. We're military. We know how to do that. We can put on our big kid pants. But if there's a way to work through this, I just feel like we should probably do it. And since it hasn't taken place yet, they're just coming up with protocols. This is the time to speak up. This is the time to say, hey, this really isn't fair. We're on fixed incomes, and with the cost of living increases, we're not getting extra money. How are we supposed to pay extra money? So, it's a thing, and it's a little awkward when your employer is Uncle Sam, and the person who provides your housing is Uncle Sam, because you want to be polite and respectful and diplomatic in how you agree to disagree. But at the same time, it's important to point out incongruity in logic. So, yeah, that's something I just wanted to make everyone aware of in general that's going down with this whole thing. It's a thing. And at this point, it hasn't happened yet. If we're going to speak up and express ourselves, we need to do it now while we have a chance. Because changing policy is a lot harder once it's already established. Or at least that's my personal opinion, what I've seen in my life. So, in other news regarding military life, the Army is now taking kind of a page out of the Air Force's book, and they're doing a study to look at the struggles that military families are facing, specifically with childcare and things like that, especially for dual service. So that's when both parents are active duty military. And that can get really complicated. My husband has had several instances in his units where there's been dual service families, and you just have to be flexible. The problem comes is that a lot of the guidance on handling these situations, specifically family care plans, can be rather vague. And so if you don't have supportive and caring leadership, then you can run into some challenges, definite challenges. And so they've been working with a group, getting information on how to improve this sort of stuff. And I like that they're talking to families. I like that they're trying to figure this out, because there are quite a few instances where dual service families have had to have someone leave the military, even though they didn't want to. They both wanted to continue serving because of family care issues. I know in particular of a family who the wife was expecting their second child, and she was told that like right after she got off maternity leave, she was going to be moved to another duty station for like a year or so, and have to leave her brand new baby and the toddler with her husband to take care of them at his duty station. And that they weren't going to move the family together or anything like that, that there was no way for her to get out of that. And so she ended up leaving because she was like, I'm not leaving my baby. Like, there wasn't even an option. They weren't going to have, like, for her to, yeah. And I know quite a few other instances where, and one of them cited in the article from Military Times. Wait, is this one was Military Times? I want to make sure I'm getting my sources right. I want to give you the right thing. Actually, no, this is Connecting Vets. They were the ones reporting this. Connecting Vets. So in the article, well, sorry for hitting my mic. In the article, they are talking about this, and they point out that there's also been instances where they'll be assigned two separate duty stations, like on the other side of the planet from each other. And they had very little time to kind of get it fixed. And once they got everything fixed, they only had like 30 days to then move. I know other instances where they have not been able to get it fixed. And so the wife was stationed and she was one branch of the service. The husband was another branch of the service. And there was no, like, their leaderships were not supportive on trying to get them stationed in a place together. And so they ended up only getting to see each other like every other weekend for 2 or 3 years. And that's really hard on families. That's really hard on marriages. And so I'm glad that the Army is sitting down and is doing this focus group and is trying to come up with ways to make it more realistic for parents and families in the military. It's about time. So, especially considering it's the month of the military child. So, and I know I did a big thing about that last year with how April is month of the military child, but really military children go through a lot and they sacrifice a lot. I work with military children on a regular basis and had one kid talking to me today about how one of their parents is currently away and how they were having a good day, but they didn't mean they didn't miss their parent. And these kids are just incredible. They're absolutely incredible in what they put up with and how they handle things, but they're still kids. And the more we can do to make their lives stable, to give them support, to help them feel that they are recognized and loved, it's necessary. There's instances where my husband has not been able to make it to really important, monumental achievements of my kids because he's in the military. And when that's because he's deployed or whatnot, it's needs of the military, yeah, that's understandable. But if it's not a needs of the military thing, it would be nice if leadership could be supportive. They're only kids for so long. And anyway, that's just, again, something that's going on. So the Army is looking into it with a focus group, and we'll have to see what comes from that. And who knows? Maybe we'll get some good stuff out of it. So those are the things I really wanted to cover today. Honestly, I feel like military life is always all over the place. And the more people... it's funny when I try to explain these things to my friends who are not military spouses or in military families. And they're like, wait, but that doesn't make sense. I'm like, yeah, welcome to our life. It doesn't make sense, but we deal. And the whole reason why we're military families is because we want to serve this country. We want to help our country. We love our country. But it would be nice if some of the sacrifices were just a little bit easier. So that's basically what I have to cover for this week. It's a slightly shorter episode. Like I said, I will be working on a website. I plan on doing a lot more public speaking in regards to self-care and time management and work-life balance and all that sort of stuff. Once I have my website launched, if you are interested in scheduling one of those courses, please reach out to me. I want to share what I know. I've realized that I have a really unique experience with a degree in family life and also being a military spouse, and that there are some skills I have learned as a military spouse that are really helpful in the civilian sector and just everyday life for people who even aren't military, because you have to kind of almost use a different way of thinking when you're in the military community and you're dealing with all of the militariness. And those skills really do translate into being successful in everyday life for anyone. I am so grateful for the degree I have that helped me learn some of these amazing skills. And then I'm really grateful for additional skills I have learned as a military wife. I feel like I am a far more resilient, adaptable person because of that. And I want to just share that with people. I want to help people find that work-life balance, find that equilibrium so that they're living their best life, that they're living a good life. Because quality of life matters. And quality of life is something that has really taken a hit in our, in our culture, I feel, in the last little bit. So that said, thank you all for listening. This is Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf.